Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I don't know what time you'll be watching this video, but listen up. The New England Patriots just came out of a 13-13 tie against the Indianapolis Colts. And while a preseason tie obviously does not decide the season, this game gave us something much more valuable: information. We got a closer look at players fighting for roster spots, young players trying to establish themselves, and some very important questions that the Patriots are going to have to answer before the regular season begins. One of the biggest surprises from the game was Cameron Dorner. If you watched what he did against Indianapolis, it becomes very difficult to ignore what he is bringing to this roster competition. Dorner showed excellent route running, good speed, and reliable hands. He made a 50-yard catch on a back shoulder throw with a defender covering him tightly, although the play was unfortunately called back. Then Tommy DeVito went right back to him for a 20-yard gain. That tells you something about the impression Dorner is making. The problem is not his talent, the problem is the numbers. The Patriots have too many wide receivers competing for too few roster spots. Kyle Williams scored a touchdown and appears to have strengthened his position. Afton Chisholm also looked good, while Pop Douglas is already part of the conversation. With 7 wide receivers competing for limited space, there simply may not be enough room for everyone. That is what makes Dorner's situation so interesting. Even if he does not make the initial 53-man roster, there is a strong hope that he could remain available for the practice squad. But there is a real concern that another team could claim him because of the potential he has already shown. And if the Patriots lose a receiver to injury, Dorner looks like the kind of player who could immediately become a candidate to step into that role. He has been one of the more impressive players throughout camp and in the first preseason game, and that makes his roster battle one worth watching very closely. Then there is the question everybody wants answered: when are the starters going to play? The Patriots have not shown much of Drake May during the preseason so far, and there is an argument that he should get at least 1 or 2 drives before the regular season begins. The concern is simple: it has been 6 months since he was last seen on a football field, and the Patriots do not want him entering week 1 against the Seattle Seahawks looking rusty. Even one drive could provide valuable game experience. The idea would not necessarily be to expose the starters to unnecessary risk, but simply to get them back into the rhythm of playing football in a real game environment. The final decision remains uncertain, but the question is becoming increasingly important as the regular season gets closer. Another interesting situation involves Matt Collins. Seeing him receive a significant number of snaps does not necessarily mean the Patriots are questioning his roster status. In fact, there is a practical explanation. The Patriots have several young receivers who need preseason opportunities, but you cannot play only the backups for an entire game and expect everyone to have enough players available. A veteran like Collins can absorb some of those snaps while the younger receivers are also evaluated. That is why his playing time should not automatically be interpreted as a negative sign. He looked solid, and the Patriots still need players who can contribute while the roster competition develops. But perhaps the most intriguing performance came from Eli Rarin. His numbers do not immediately jump off the screen. He had a catch for 8 yards, while another reception for 25 yards was called back. There were also plays where he was open, but the quarterback simply could not get him the football. So if you only look at the box score, you could easily miss what made his performance so encouraging. The real story was everything else he did. His route running stood out, but his blocking may have been even more impressive. The Patriots were able to use him in situations where his blocking helped create opportunities in the running game. On one play, he blocked a Colts defender and helped keep the defender from making the tackle. On another, he was able to push a defender out of the developing play and help create an open lane for a big gain. That is extremely important because the Patriots can use tight ends in multiple ways. The team can put 2 tight ends on the field, use 12 personnel, and create formations where the defense has to respect both the passing and running possibilities. Eli Rarin showed that he can contribute beyond simply catching passes, and that leads to a much bigger question: could he eventually challenge Hunter Henry for the top tight end role? It would be too early to make that prediction based on one preseason game, but the performance was good enough to make the conversation legitimate. The Patriots may have found something valuable in a young tight end who can run routes, get open, and also contribute as a blocker. The running back competition is just as fascinating. Jam Miller caught attention with his performance against Indianapolis. He showed aggression as a runner, good vision, and the ability to run downhill with power. He finished with more than 50 rushing yards and looked like one of the better runners on the field. But there is another side to this competition. Miller did not contribute in the passing game, finishing with 0 catches for 0 yards. Meanwhile, Lan Larison struggled more as a runner, but showed much more value as a receiver out of the backfield, finishing with 6 catches for 38 yards. So the Patriots are looking at two very different skill sets. With Jam Miller, you get a more traditional downhill runner who can attack the defense with aggression. With Lan Larison, you get a back who provides more value as a pass catcher. That makes the running back 3 competition far from decided. The Patriots have a choice to make. Do they want the player who can give them more as a runner, or do they want the player who can provide more receiving ability out of the backfield? That decision could ultimately determine who earns the spot. And then there is perhaps the most controversial situation of all, Christian Gonzalez. The question of his trade value is becoming impossible to ignore in the discussion surrounding the Patriots. The opinion presented here is that Gonzalez would be worth at least 2 first-round picks, but even that does not mean trading him would be the right decision. The reason is simple. Gonzalez is viewed as one of the best cornerbacks in football. Moving him would mean losing an all-pro level player and one of the most important pieces of the defense. The contract situation only makes the conversation more complicated. As the season gets closer, the uncertainty surrounding his extension continues to raise questions about what could happen. But from the Patriots' perspective, the preferred outcome is clear. Keep Gonzalez and give him the contract extension he deserves. That is what makes this situation so important. The Patriots are not simply deciding what a player is worth. They are deciding what direction they want their defense to take moving forward. And now the attention turns toward the joint practices with Philadelphia. This is where things get even more interesting, because joint practices can provide something preseason games sometimes cannot. Extended live competition against another team. The Patriots will get an opportunity to see their players operate against the Eagles, and that could be especially valuable for players who have not received extensive preseason action. Drake May is one of the biggest names to watch. The Patriots need to see him get back into a competitive rhythm, and joint practices can provide meaningful repetitions without requiring a full preseason game. There is also enormous attention surrounding A.J. Brown and the matchup against the Patriots defense. The expectation is that this will be one of the most closely watched individual battles during the practices. The Patriots will have an opportunity to test themselves against Philadelphia, and these sessions could reveal a lot about where the team stands before the regular season begins. So when you put everything together, the Patriots are entering an extremely important stretch. Cameron Dorner is fighting for a roster opportunity despite showing real ability. Eli Rarin has created excitement because of what he can do both as a receiver and a blocker. Jam Miller and Lan Larison are battling for a running back role with completely different strengths. Gabe Ayers has shown athleticism and raw talent, but still has room to develop. Christian Gonzalez remains at the center of a major contract question, and Drake May could soon return to preseason action as the Patriots prepare for the regular season. There are still plenty of unanswered questions, and the next practices could provide some of the biggest clues yet. So, Patriots fans, looking at everything we saw against Indianapolis and everything that is coming next, which situation concerns you the most right now? The roster battle at wide receiver, the running back competition, the development of the young players, the Christian Gonzalez contract situation, or the decision about getting Drake May back onto the field? And that question becomes even more important when you look at what this preseason game actually told us. The Patriots are not simply trying to win preseason games right now. They are trying to figure out which players can help them when the games actually matter. And Thursday night gave us several players who made their cases stronger. For Cameron Dorner, the situation is a perfect example of how difficult roster decisions can become. Sometimes a player can do almost everything right and still find himself on the outside because there are simply too many players competing for the same limited number of spots. Dorner's performance against Indianapolis gave the Patriots another reason to keep evaluating him. His route running, speed, and ability to make difficult catches were all on display. The frustrating part is that production does not automatically guarantee a roster spot. The Patriots have other receivers making strong cases too. Kyle Williams scored a touchdown, Efton Chisholm looked good, and Pop Douglas remains part of the group. That means every preseason opportunity becomes extremely important for a player like Dorner. And this is where the practice squad possibility becomes so interesting. If Dorner does not make the 53-man roster, the Patriots would obviously prefer to keep him within the organization, but there is no guarantee that happens. A player who has shown the ability to create separation, run good routes, and make contested catches can attract attention from another team. That is why the Patriots have to make a difficult decision. Do they keep the player now, knowing they may have to sacrifice another position somewhere else? Or do they take the risk of trying to get him onto the practice squad? That is the kind of decision that can define the final days of roster construction. The same can be said about the running back room. Jam Miller and Lan Larison gave the Patriots two completely different arguments. Miller showed that he can be the physical runner. He attacked the line with aggression, showed good vision, and looked comfortable running downhill. When you watched him carry the ball, you could see why he caught attention. He looked like a player who wanted to make defenders deal with him physically, but Larison showed why this competition is not over. His 6 catches for 38 yards demonstrated that he can bring another dimension to the offense. If the Patriots want a running back who can be a reliable option in the passing game, that skill becomes extremely valuable. So this is not simply about deciding who had the better preseason performance. It is about deciding what the offense needs from that third running back. If the Patriots want more physicality and downhill running, Miller has a strong argument. If they want another player who can contribute in the passing game, Larison has a strong argument. That is why this competition should continue to be watched closely. And then we get back to Eli Rarin, because his performance may have been one of the most encouraging developments of the entire night. The numbers were not spectacular, but that is exactly why this performance